An update to the new RiTherm software is the fact that now what we do first is we create a project. The project then houses all therm calculations regarding to that project in one safe space, so you can access them easily in the future and keep everything nicely organized. So we're going to create a new project now. So if we click the plus button there, we get this box pop up. And there's a lot of information that if we want to, we can enter in here to help us be more accurate and keep track of our multiple projects at any time. So for this project, I'm going to just put in a project name, and I might call that the packing line because it's in our imaginary factory, and we're going to work on the packing line, which is very long and has multiple calculations within it. Obviously, I could put descriptions, project numbers, even end company and end customer names, things like this, if that's relevant to you. But these options are here for you. The only one that you have to fill out is project name. After that, we click Add Project, and that will be added to our project list, which can be accessed at any time on the left-hand side. So from this now, we can add thermal calculations using this button. So here we come to our what could be argued is the most important piece of information you need to include in your calculation, which is the calculation properties section. So first off, you can give this calculation a name because remember, this is a calculation within a project. So you can have multiple therm calculations for different enclosures on the packing line or wherever it is in the factory under one project. And what we need to put in here is firstly the altitude above sea level, because if you go higher or lower, that will affect the performance of cooling products. It's set default at 0 to 500 meters, as you can see. Set internal temperature, so it's default at 35 degrees centigrade, which is the sort of factory / industry standard that we use and how we test our units to our regulations. You can obviously lower this or increase it as you see fit, but if in doubt, remain at this number. You then can add the minimum ambient temperature. So that would be the coldest it gets in the environment. So think worst case scenario, middle of winter, everything's shut off, HVAC is turned off, and everybody's gone home for Christmas break. How cold does it get? Does it get into the negatives? Is it outside? Those sorts of things. And then we have maximum ambient temperature. So obviously the opposite problem. What is the hottest it is going to get? So think middle of summer, heat wave, worst case scenario. These figures, even changed by 1 degree, can make a large difference. So we need to try and be as accurate as we can when choosing these. Once we have set these, we can go on to choose our enclosure. Now we've inputted our calculation properties, we need to create some enclosures. So we need to come down to the bottom of the screen and we can create enclosure sets. So an enclosure set is basically just either a single enclosure or a group of bayed enclosures, but you can create multiple sets within one thermal calculation if you wish. For this example, we are going to specify a RiTherm enclosure, so we'll click this button and we now see some more graphics on the screen. So if we just scroll down, we see a visualizer from above of the enclosure. So this is looking down bird's eye view. And what we can do here is we can specify the walls that are blocked and are covered. So for example, this one at the back here is the wall behind the enclosure. So if it's wall mounted or is floor mounted against the wall, we could click plus here and show that there is a wall there. You can also pick left and right, and obviously plus buttons for baying other enclosures to this one. So if we scroll down a little bit more, now we can start to input the actual type of enclosure, etc. So this first one is the enclosure model type. So if you know the number, this is just a long list of all the different types of RiTherm enclosures, or obviously you can type a number in the search bar. But if you want to be a little bit more specific or you're not sure, we can go into this filter button. And as you can see here, we have multiple different ones that we can filter by. So for example, I'm just going to go into type, and I'm going to specify that I would like a VX enclosure. So now, as you can see, it's changed this list and it's only showing me VX type enclosures. So if I just have a quick look down here, I'll just choose this one, 1 meter wide, 2 meters high, 600 millimeters deep. So select that, click select, we go back, and that is now in here, and the dimensions are in this grayed out box. You now also need to input one of the most important pieces, which is the heat loss. So you may have a heat loss value in watts or kilowatts that you can just type into this box here. So for example, I could just put 1 kilowatt in here. However, if you don't have this figure, if you see the little calculator here, if you click this one, it will bring up a new text box. And if you have some measured temperatures, so if you have them yourself or we've been on site and done some measurements for you, you will have a measured internal temperature, a measured external temperature. If you put these in here, it will give you a heat loss figure here. You click apply and it will input that into the heat loss box. So you also have that option available. The other boxes we have here are workload factor, which is default at 80%, but you may wish to change this depending on the information you have available about the equipment going inside of your enclosure. And we also need to choose covering type. Now, what that means is if we click this box, we can say that the unit has its roof covered, it is floor standing, so that would mean the roof is free. Or we would have the worst case scenario, I guess, which would be the roof is covered and it's floor standing. So basically, you just need to pick the configuration that best suits the way this enclosure is actually going to be on site. So if I click floor standing, we've specified the enclosure now, but what we need to not forget before we can progress to the calculation is we need to save the set. So if we click Save Set, we now see that we can go in and edit this if we wish. We can delete it if we want to start again because we've done something wrong. But now we have our calculate button in blue active, so we can click this and go on to choose our cooling device. So we now arrive at the outcome screen, and on this screen we are going to see any sets of enclosures that we have created. In this example we only have set 1, single enclosure. And what it's going to tell us is it's a bit of a sense check. So it's the temperature without climate control, so 62 degrees, which is in amber. And as you can see here, it's saying a cooling device is needed. It's just then telling us the internal temperature that we've set and the heat loss that we're going to have to deal with using some sort of cooling method. We also get a chance here to monitor our original parameters, which we can do at any time, but they're down here. So we could change the internal temperature or the ambient temperature, and this would modify the results we have up here. So let's just have a go at that now. So if I just quickly click that now and add 5 degrees extra to the max ambient temperature and click calculate, you can see it tells me that change has been done. The temperature without climate control has increased, and also the heat loss that we have to deal with has also increased. So when we go to the next screen to pick a cooling device, that will change the options that are suitable to us. So I'll just bring that down to 40, re-click calculate, so we're back where we started, and we can click next to take us to our next screen. If we wish to use a cooling unit to maintain the temperature inside our enclosure, that's very simple. We just go to the cooling unit section, click this drop down, and it will now bring us a list of all the cooling units we could choose from. But the eagle eye amongst you will notice that there's actually 73 at the moment that we can pick from, which is quite a lot. So what we can do is, to help us, we can put in place some filters. So we click the filter button. Firstly, we have mounting style. So I'm going to click down on there and we have roof or wall. Now for this example, I want wall mounted, so I'm going to apply that. And that's brought it down to 61. If we then look again, we can also choose quantity. So some installations, if it's a longer bayed enclosure scenario, you might not just want one cooling unit, you might want to split it over a couple. But for this one, we're just going to limit it down to 1 and click apply. That brings it down again. There's also protection category. So say, for example, you need a certain NEMA rating, you can choose that, but I don't require that for this one. And then also there is cooling output. So if you did have a specific size of unit in mind, you can put your largest and smallest figures in here, and those filters will apply. So if we click apply, we now have a list that's more manageable, let's say, that we want to look at. Now, this table is, you can modify it slightly. So as you can see here, you can filter if you hover over this. Now, I've already filtered by cooling performance. So it's gone from lowest to highest. Now, how does it know what is lowest? Well, it's looking at this figure here, which is necessary cooling output. So this is the minimum wattage size we need to maintain the temperatures inside our enclosure that we've set on our parameter box down here. So as you can see, everything is going to be above this figure. So you can safely choose any of these and know that it's going to meet the requirements that you have set. So I'm just going to have a look through here, and I am going to choose this one here, 3185830, which is a Blue E Plus cooling unit. If I click that now, it's highlighted. And if you look up here now, the orange on the set, which meant cooling device required, has now turned green, which tells me I have specified a suitable cooling product. And if you had obviously multiple sets, that would help you just quickly eyeball and make sure you had chosen the right thing. Now, if you want to, if you come across here to the preview section, you can click these little buttons. So you can click preview, and that will give you just a little picture and just a bit of information about the unit. And if you click learn more, that will take you to the web page specific for that product. It also has the characteristics, which is really nice actually. So this is interactive, and this is the performance curve for this cooling unit. So you can modify these buttons here. So if you change that, say, to 45 and click calculate, it would modify the point and tell you the actual physical performance of this cooling unit based on these parameters here. Because remember, whenever we change these parameters, we modify the amount of cooling that's required and also how effective the cooling unit can be. Because the higher the ambient temperature, the harder the cooling unit has to work. The lower the ambient temperature, or the lower the set point as well, the lower the set point, the cooling unit has to work harder to maintain that colder environment. So you need to keep these things in mind, and this is just a quick, nice sort of eyeball check or sense check to make sure everything is ship shape and shiny. You can also click climate profile here, and this is some interesting information as well, where it's going to start talking to you about the impact and carbon footprint and power consumption of your cooling unit that you have chosen. So once we've chosen the cooling unit that we're happy with, we can go down to next, and we would move on to specifying our accessories. Choosing the right accessories is as simple as a click of the mouse. Once we're in this screen, you've got your cooling solution here, which is a cooling unit for set 1, which is our first enclosure set, and then we have a list of all the applicable accessories we can choose for this cooling unit, from IoT interface, air diverters, temperature sensors, circuit breakers, anything we need. We can just click them like this. Click a few of those, and then we choose how many of them we want. So we'll just choose one for everything. If we've made a mistake, you can just click the clear button there and delete all the options. But really simple, just choose the ones you want, enter the number you require, and then we click next to get us to the summary page. The summary section is our place to check everything we've done so far and also download a summary of everything that's been completed, so we can save that in a project file or send on to colleagues or customers. So firstly, we have this general information section, which gives us our basic data such as project name, contact details, the date it's been created, the internal temperatures, all those sorts of parameters that we've discussed throughout therm calculations. We can then scroll down and see our set summary. So if we click this click down button, it will show us the device that we've chosen, any accessories, the enclosure itself, part number, dimensions, all the information that we've put in just to make sure that it's all correct. And then if we go further down the page, we go to the order overview section, which is giving us all the devices and accessories that we've chosen, so we can re-access these preview buttons if we wish. We can check quantities, just make sure everything is correct. If we're happy with that, we've got two choices. Firstly, we can download the documentation. So if we click this button, it will allow us to download all of this as a summary, which as standard comes as a PDF, but as you can see, you can also download in other versions to suit your needs. You can also, if needed, download a component list, which will show all the components you've selected in PDF or other formats. You can also download the IEC 61439 documentation in different formats as well. This documentation is basically showing that we've adhered to these IEC regulations when we do our thermal calculations in this software. So you can pick and choose those if you require. So you can download those here using the download button and it will save to your computer. Once you've done that, we can save the calculation to the project. The project is now saved successfully, so you can either go back to the main screen and do more calculations, or your therm calculation is complete at this time.